argument about first?
It was about whether a behavior is controlled by genes or controlled by the environment.
Okay. What do you think? Do you have a thought on that?
And yeah, what I think is that the gene predisposes a person to a particular behavior, and the environment influences that behavior.
Thank you. Okay. And that's what you should have picked up in your readings. Okay. You should pick up that your book gives you examples about genes operating. Okay. And let me see if I can find it in the text. Make sure I'm not too far. Yes. Now, note that to a large extent we understand that we are not the only animal on the planet that can use tools, which is one of the things that we talk about in terms of the development, okay? And we've even been able to sort of test animals to determine which ones are more intelligent than others, okay? And we could probably even rank dogs in matter of intelligence. But we noticed that we know that some animals, especially the primates, will do things like use tools to like get into anthills and things of that nature. But man, and I use that term generically, is the animal that will change the whole structure of nature for its needs or his or her needs, okay? And what happens is that we think, some people believe that genes are the things that determine what a person is going to be like, okay? What do they call it? What is that called? Biological determinants, okay? So that sort of says that man is controlled, and I say man including women, but you're talking about mankind or humankind, is controlled biologically, okay? And there's some evidence to say, yes, that makes sense, okay? But there's another group of people who argue that it's not nature or biology that makes the determination, it's really your nurturing. And when they say nurturing, what are we talking about when we say nurturing? What is nurturing? Where does that come from? Environment? I'm sorry. The home. The home. So we're probably talking about socialization. Sometimes it's hard. Okay? We're talking about that. And so we're saying, some people argue that it is in fact your socialization that makes the difference as to what you're going to do. Okay? And that is not to say that they discredit biology altogether. Good morning. They just say that both of them may be in conflict. Okay? And that one person says that we have social determinism as opposed to biological. Okay? And the social people say that it's the culture that basically determines what you're going to do. So then we have two schools of thought. Okay? Now what happens is that then once we get to that point, people start trying to prove their point. Okay? Once we say that it's genes that make the difference, somebody's got to prove that genes do make the difference. Okay? Now, I asked you, do genes make a difference? Do genes make a difference? Please give me an answer, and please give me some support for it. This is thinking day, people. Do genes make any difference? Scared, huh? Well, some people say that yes, genes do make a difference. Okay? They're saying that genes clearly predisposes some people to certain things. Okay? And if I recall your text right, first of all, we already know that genes pass on certain things. We know that. Okay? And it's also ironic that you will notice that if your father was a race car driver, the chances you'll be a good race car driver has improved dramatically. If your father played professional football or basketball, the chance of you doing that has improved dramatically. Okay? If your parents were musicians, the chances of you being musicians has improved dramatically. Yes.
Now, doesn't that come under social environment?
Not
Rather than
necessarily.
genes?
Not necessarily. I think that a lot of people would argue it's genes.
Really?
Certainly. Okay. Now let's talk about it, because what we're arguing is heredity, right? And heredity is genes. You can see that. Heredity is genes. Okay. Now, that's not to say that everything else doesn't play a part, okay? Now, remember that genes are the basic unit of hereditary information. It passes on from generation to generation. And let me say, not always from generation to generation. Sometimes it skips a generation and resurfaces. This is the kind of thing that you learn in your biology class. Okay? Now notice that when we talk, we have to use things to say, what did I learn in this class, and that class, and this class, that makes that we can pull together. You pull together all of your learning. What you learn in political science is just relevant here, as here. What you learn in biology is relevant here. What you learn in psychology is relevant here. You must start trying to get all that information and synthesize it. Okay? It's synthesizing information. It's not just given to you for the sake of giving it to you. Okay? Now we know, for instance, that your text says that there's some human behavior is influenced by genes. For instance, how neurotic, outgoing, open, agreeable, conscientious a person is due partly to genes. Okay? Say how outgoing, how conscientious, how thoughtful people are is due partly to genes. Okay? Now, what happens is that it seems though that in most cases, genes represent the potential for particular traits. It says you've got the potential for these traits, yes ma'am.
I'm wondering, is gene the same thing as hereditary?
Say this again.
Is it the same thing as hereditary?
Yes, it's the same as heredity. Okay? Now, so, that what happens then is that even though it gives you the potential for these, now the question then becomes, how does that get expressed? Okay? And what happens is that they say that the genes, these traits are there, but it depends on the physical and social environment into which a person is born. And that's where the nurturing comes in. Okay? You get the nature, and then you pull in the nurturing, and those things combined says what you're going to do. Okay? Now, I think your text gives you some examples where they might contain people who have genes for growth. And one of them lives in a poor say like they're separated, and one is where they're sort of left behind. They don't get good nurturing, they don't get good food, they don't get any of these things. And another putting her in an area where he's giving good food, good milk, good nutrition, and all of them. And they look at them X number of years later, and one has a stunted growth and one has a normal growth. Okay? Now the genes may have been the same. Now we don't know everything. Okay? And we guess at a lot of things. And we know, for instance, that you can have two children growing up in a house with alcoholic parents, and one of them will be an alcoholic and one won't.
Right.
We know those things happen. Okay? And so those are mysteries to us because they theoretically both have the same environment and they both have the same genes, but they didn't turn out the same. Okay? Now what happens is that what we have determined is that if you have these genes, and under the right conditions, these genes will come to the forefront. So if you have a gene that says you're predisposed or predetermined to have depression, okay? That doesn't mean you're going to have depression. What it means is that if you stay around a lot of depressed people and your family is full of depressed people, you might have a depression. Okay? But if you're around people who don't go around getting depressions and things of that nature, you won't get it. Okay?
I disagree with that. Because you have studied some psychology.
Yes.
And you have families where they're quote unquote normal, and because of the genes, the disposition of the genes, they still end up with a mental disorder. Even growing up in a household of where they're nurturing, they're loving, they're educated, it can still happen.
Now let's go back a couple of steps, okay? Now I'm not saying that you're wrong. Okay? Now I'm not saying she is wrong. But what I'm saying, the things that you put into the hopper is mental illness a social construct?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, that's because you have institutions that cater to people that.
But the point is, we decide what's mental illness and what is not mental illness. Is that true?
No.
Yes, it is.
But if you're hearing voices, that's serious.
Stop. There's some cultures that will allow you to hear voices and they don't care about it.
I've heard voices
There's
from-
some cultures that if you hear voices, they say you hear voices from God or from their ruler. And they don't see that as a mental illness. They see that as somebody they should be cherishing and revering.
Somebody enlightened.
And somebody enlightened. Okay? So, therefore, mental illness is a social construct. It depends on your culture whether you're mentally ill or not. And you can see that.
I don't know.
Well, you can see that it depends on the culture whether you're mentally ill or not. Okay? So therefore, it depends on your culture. Secondly, there was some person who went around, I forget who it was, that says, if you can find another person on this planet, they call it the Falea Adu. Remember that? The Falea Adu? If you can find another person on this planet that thinks the way you do, you're not crazy. Now, I'm not saying that anybody's right or wrong. Understand me. What I'm saying is that we are here to start looking at things from a wider perspective, to take a sociological perspective on things. That's all I'm saying. Okay? And in order to do that, you don't just knock out some things and pull some things in. You try to look at all of it. And I sort of have a gift that I can argue either side of it. You understand me? Okay? And I may actually agree with what you're saying, but I need you to see the other sides of it. There are people who got along with the Native Americans, and you watch some of these pictures, that they could go to the Native American place because they thought they were crazy. Shaman, and they revered that. Shaman are crazy. And shaman are crazy people, trust me. But the culture don't see them as being crazy. Okay, nobody sees them as being inside their culture. So we determine. Now, I'll tell you why it's a social construct. In 1950, you know what we said about homosexuals? Somebody tell me. They were crazy. You remember that? In 1950, we said homosexuals were crazy. And in 1960s, we said homosexuals were crazy. And if they came up with showing that they preferred the same sex, we put them in mental institutions. Yes, we did. We put them in mental institutions. And if you look back at your diagnostic and statistical manuals that your psychologists like to deal with so much, you'll discover that there's a code for the mental illness. Now, that's why it's a social construct. Because then the people who were homosexuals says, I'm not crazy, you're the crazy folks. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Please take it in. You understand what I'm saying? You must look at these things. Look at things like cocaine and marijuana. Do you know once upon a time that stuff was legal? That was legal. Because all the rich folks and the artists did use it. When you see pictures of Sherlock Holmes, do you ever notice he's always smoking a pipe? And he's sitting down taking needles? Because he's a cocaine addict. And nobody said that that's what rich folks did. They didn't drink. They used cocaine. You look at these pictures and you see these old pictures and you see these people going to these little gyms and doing this all the time. Have you noticed that?
No.
Oh. See, we had a nice word for it. It's snuff. But you understand what I'm saying? Now, you don't see people buying so much snuff today. That's not to say that they don't still go around putting stuff up their nose, but notice that the culture changes. Okay? That's why you have to look at things over time. And see, now we have moved from legalizing all of this stuff or saying that there was nothing wrong with cocaine and this to saying now it's bad. Once upon a time we said alcohol was bad. Now it's good. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or trying to say? Okay? Because you must, one of the things when your book says you must look at cultures over time and comparison of the culture, that's what I mean. Okay? Because everything that we do basically is reconstructed. Okay? Now, what happened is that when we look at some things and now we're going to talk about, I think, humans without culture. Because this talks about culture, power, and the social self. Now, they give you a case of Isabel. Can somebody tell me what is Isabel about? Who was Isabel? What was it about? You folks must read your text, people. I keep telling you, read your text. Because you're doing yourself a disservice. You are doing yourself a disservice. Okay? And notice, I don't care if you have the answer right or wrong. I need you to read your text. You need to read your text. What is Isabel about? I notice we're talking about culture and we're arguing that Isabel didn't have a culture. So let's talk about the Isabel that I know, or I think I know. Isabel had a parent who was a deaf mute. In those days, they called her deaf and dumb. Dumb means she could not talk. Okay, but she was a deaf mute. without it bringing some shame to the family. Okay? Now, and you see, and so there wasn't all these abortion arguments, even though abortion were illegal, nobody wanted to have children out of wedlock.